There is a number that the mainstream American press has not yet assembled into a single headline that every American paying $4.50 for gasoline deserves to see clearly. $90 billion. That is the potential windfall that the Financial Times reported Canadian oil producers could receive from Trump's war in Iran based on modeling by Enverus, a Houston-based energy analytics firm owned by the Blackstone investment management company. $90 billion. Flowing to the oil sands of Alberta, to the Trans Mountain pipeline running at full capacity, to the producers who are selling Canadian crude to a world that cannot get enough of it because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Flowing to Canada, because Donald Trump started a war. And the most extraordinary, the most revealing, the most poetically complete fact about this entire story is not the $90 billion. It is the method by which Canada earned it. Mark Carney did not fire a single shot. He did not send a single Canadian soldier into the Strait of Hormuz. He did not join Operation Epic Fury. He did not commit the Royal Canadian Navy to the military campaign. He looked at the war, assessed the leverage, declined the invitation to participate, attended the multilateral diplomatic coalition instead, kept his pipeline running, signed his trade deals, and waited. And while he waited, the war that was supposed to give Washington maximum pressure over Canada and the world gave Canada a $90 billion windfall instead. That is what strategic patience looks like when it is executed by a man who spent 13 years as a central banker studying how leverage shifts under pressure. That is what winning looks like without firing a single shot. Hit subscribe right now and tap the bell notification before we build this picture any further. Because what we are about to lay out is the complete financial, strategic, and political accounting of how Trump's war became Canada's greatest energy windfall in a generation, why the $90 billion number is real and verified and published by the Financial Times citing Enverus modeling, and what it means for the USMCA negotiation that is now 85 days away, that the country Trump has been calling the 51st state for 14 months, just received a financial benefit from the war he started that no American energy company, no American oil producer, and no American consumer is receiving. Subscribe, hit the bell. This is the complete picture. Let us start with the $90 billion number and build it from its foundation, because the precision of the calculation matters, and the source matters, and the context matters. Enverus, a Houston-based energy analytics firm owned by the Blackstone investment management company, calculated that Canadian oil companies receive between 25 and 30 billion Canadian dollars of extra revenue for every $10 increase in oil prices. That calculation is not an estimate or a projection or an opinion. It is a mathematical function of production volume multiplied by price differential, and it applies directly to the Canadian oil sands producers whose output moves through Trans Mountain to Asian buyers and through the Enbridge mainline to American Midwest refineries. The Financial Times published Enverus's modeling showing that if crude prices stay near current levels, Canadian oil producers could be in line for a windfall of as much as $90 billion. Canada's National Observer confirmed the Financial Times reporting. Canada's national broadcaster CBC confirmed the underlying economic analysis with its own reporting that every $10 increase in the price of a barrel of oil translates into approximately $2 billion of additional revenue for the Canadian federal government alone, not Alberta, the federal government, separately from the provincial royalties, separately from the corporate revenues of Suncor and Canadian Natural Resources and Cenovus and Imperial Oil. $2 billion per $10 oil price increase for the federal government. Now let us apply that formula to the actual oil price numbers. Before the war started on February 28th, Brent crude was trading at approximately $69 per barrel. Today, April 6, 2026, WTI is at $112 to $113 per barrel, confirmed by Bloomberg and Investing.com. That is a gain of approximately $43 per barrel from the pre-war level. Using Enverus's formula of 25 to 30 billion Canadian dollars per $10 increase, a $40 increase produces a potential revenue boost of 100 to 120 billion Canadian dollars for the Canadian oil sector. The $90 billion figure from the Financial Times uses a somewhat more conservative set of assumptions about price sustainability, production capacity, and timing. But the order of magnitude is verified by multiple independent calculations using the same underlying data. Canada's oil producers are looking at a windfall of historic proportions, and the war that produced it was started by the man who spent 14 months trying to use economic pressure to force Canada into submission on trade terms. Drop a comment right now and answer this one question honestly. Before this video, Did you know that the Financial Times reported a potential $90 billion windfall for Canadian oil producers from Trump's Iran war? Did you know that Enverus, a Houston firm owned by Blackstone, calculated 25 to 30 billion Canadian dollars of extra revenue for every $10 oil price increase? Did you know that Canada's Trans Mountain CEO Maki confirmed at the CERAWeek conference in Houston that the pipeline is running in the high 90s as a percentage of its 890,000 barrel daily capacity because of the war? And did you know that Carney declined to join the military operation that created these conditions while Canada is receiving the financial benefit of the disruption that operation produced? Leave your answer below right now, because the distance between what is happening to Canada's energy finances and what the American media is telling American taxpayers about who is winning this trade war is exactly the distance this channel exists to measure and close. Now let us talk about the specific companies that are receiving this windfall, because the story is not abstract. It has names and ticker symbols and quarterly earnings reports that will tell the complete story. Suncor Energy, Canadian Natural Resources, Cenovus Energy, Imperial Oil. These are the 4 largest oil sands producers in Canada, and their combined output forms the foundation of the Trans Mountain Pipeline's cargo and the Enbridge Mainline's throughput. According to analysis cited by Canada's National Observer, foreign owners hold 73% of the shares in these 4 companies, with American owners accounting for 60%. That detail is worth sitting with for a moment, because it means a significant portion of the $90 billion windfall is flowing to American investors who own Canadian oil assets, at the same moment that American consumers are paying $4.50 per gallon for gasoline because the same war drove up global oil prices. American institutional investors are receiving the windfall while American families are paying the price. That is the complete picture of who benefits from a war that the president, who claims to be protecting American workers, chose to start. Now let us go back to the pipeline and the physical infrastructure, because the financial windfall does not exist without the physical reality of Canada's energy export capacity. Trans Mountain CEO Maki confirmed at the CERAWeek by S&P Global Conference in Houston that the 890,000 barrel per day pipeline is running in the high 90s in terms of utilization percentage, and that he would attribute this to disruption around the globe, very, very close to full, in his words. As recently as last summer, the system was running at about 84%. The war took it from 84% to high 90s in approximately 5 weeks. And at the same time, the LNG Canada terminal in Kitimat, which came online in 2025, is operating at full capacity, shipping liquefied natural gas to Japan, South Korea, and Malaysia, countries whose entire energy systems have been destabilized by the Hormuz closure. Canada's Pacific energy export infrastructure, built over a decade at enormous cost, is running at full capacity because the war in the Middle East removed the competition. Picture the scene at the Trans Mountain Westridge Marine Terminal in Burnaby, British Columbia, on a Tuesday evening in early April 2026, as Trump's deadline for Iran ticks toward 8 o'clock Eastern Time. An Aframax tanker is loading at the berth. The marine terminal's lights reflect on the waters of Burrard Inlet. In the distance, the coast mountains of British Columbia rise above the clouds. Inside the terminal's operations center, monitors track the flow of crude from Edmonton, 890 kilometers to the east, through 2 steel pipelines that cross the Rocky Mountains, descend through the Fraser River Canyon, and arrive at the coast. The tanker's manifest says China. The crude is Western Canadian Select, heavy oil from the Alberta oil sands, precisely the type that Asian refineries, which previously sourced Gulf crude, have been scrambling to replace since the Hormuz closure began. And every barrel that loads into that tanker is a barrel that contributes to the $90 billion windfall that the Financial Times and Enverus calculated would flow to Canadian oil producers if prices stay near current levels. While Trump is threatening to destroy Iran's power plants before midnight, while the deadline is running down, while oil is at $112, while American gas is at $4.50, the tanker is loading, the pipeline is full, Canada is winning. Let us now connect the $90 billion windfall to the USMCA negotiation that is 85 days away, Because the financial picture is not separable from the negotiating picture. The government of Canada is receiving approximately $2 billion of additional federal revenue for every $10 oil price increase. A $40 oil price increase from pre-war levels means approximately $8 billion of additional federal government revenue. That is additional fiscal capacity. That is additional ability to invest in the Canadian economy, to support workers affected by the trade war's tariffs on auto and steel and aluminum, to fund the research and development and advanced manufacturing transition that the Carney government has been building since day one. It is additional negotiating room, because a government that is running a better budget position heading into a trade negotiation is a government that can afford to hold its position longer, concede less, and wait for the other side's political pressure to force a deal on Canadian terms rather than American terms. The government across the table is in the opposite position. Trump's approval is at 35% and falling. His disapproval rating on Fox News hit 59%, the highest of either of his terms. His approval rating on handling Iran is at 33%. Among independents, it is 22%. The war he started to protect American national security has produced $4.50 gasoline, a missing airman situation on Iranian soil last week, an F-15 shot down over Keshem Island, an A-10 downed in the rescue attempt, an Iran that rejected the 45-day ceasefire proposal and said it wants a permanent end to the war on its own terms, and a Tuesday 8 p.m. deadline that has been extended 5 times already. The political pressure on Trump heading into the USMCA negotiation is not comparable to what Canada is experiencing, and the $90 billion oil windfall is one of the reasons why. There is a detail that crystallizes the complete absurdity of the strategic position Trump has created for himself. He spent 14 months calling Canada the 51st state. He called its prime minister a governor. He imposed tariffs his own Supreme Court struck down as illegal. He tried to use economic pressure to force Canadian dependence. He started a war in the Middle East that he said would last 48 hours and is now in its 37th day with no exit strategy confirmed and a deadline expiring tonight. And the cumulative result of all of that, the war and the tariffs and the ultimatums and the F-15 going down and the Truth Social posts and the Easter Sunday expletives and the power plant day threats, is that the country he has been trying to pressure into submission is looking at a $90 billion windfall, a pipeline running at full capacity, a 40-nation diplomatic coalition that it helped build without the United States, 12 trade deals on 4 continents, a Mercosur agreement expected in September, NATO at 2%, and 85 days to the most important trade negotiation in North American history. And Carney is not posting expletive-laden threats on social media. He is not invoking God while threatening to destroy civilian infrastructure. He is not issuing deadlines that he extends 4 and 5 times. He is managing a country that is shipping oil to Asia, supplying the American Midwest, attending coalition meetings, signing trade deals, and receiving a $90 billion windfall from a war he declined to join. That is what strategic patience looks like when it is executed at the highest level. That is the contrast between 2 different kinds of leadership measured against each other in the only currency that matters in a trade war. Real-world outcomes. Trump's outcome: 35% approval, $4.50 gas, missing airmen, illegal tariffs struck down, a war with no exit strategy, and an Iran that just rejected his ceasefire proposal. Carney's outcome: $90 billion windfall, pipeline at full capacity, 12 deals on 4 continents, 40-nation coalition signed, USMCA leverage at maximum, and not a single Canadian soldier in harm's way. If this video gave you the complete picture of the $90 billion windfall, what it means for the USMCA table, and why the war that was supposed to give Trump maximum pressure over Canada ended up giving Carney maximum financial and strategic advantage instead, share it right now with every American who deserves to understand that the country their president has been trying to annex, tariff, and pressure for 14 months just received a $90 billion windfall from his war. Share it with every person who still thinks the pressure campaign is working. The pipeline is full. The windfall is real. And Carney did not fire a single shot. Share this.